Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. This is part 5 of this series of Angular 14, consuming the GraphQL endpoint using the Apollo Angular library. Now let's try to implement the update operation. So let's create a new component in the fruits module like edit component. Okay, command is like ng generate component inside of the fruits module, right? So specify the folder and the name of the component, edit. Okay, I don't want any spec files. Okay, edit component file successfully got created. Okay, now let's define the route for the edit component in the fruit routing module. Okay, path edit. So here I want to pass some dynamic value also. Dynamic value here is nothing but the item that I want to edit, right? So for creating the dynamic value in the route, you can specify with colon and the ID. So this will be the dynamic value, okay? And component specify like edit component. Edit component is almost similar to the add component. So let's copy the entire HTML from the add component.html to edit component.html. So go to add component.html, copy, and now go to edit component.html, paste it over here. Okay, let's change like update a item and button will be update and a new method for update. Okay, so create a empty method in the edit component and method name is update. Okay, and what are the things we have to fix? We have to have the fruit form. Okay, we can directly copy it from the add component.ts file. Okay, edit component.ts file. So here import the namespace. Now warnings are gone in the edit component.html. So now the thing is, whenever our form is loaded, edit form loads, we want to display the item that we want to edit, right? So that means we want to read the data from the server based on the ID. Okay, let's frame the query command for fetching the item based on ID. Okay, now come to our development tool for GraphQL. Let's create the query command to fetch the record by ID. Okay, we know we have to use query keyword. Okay, and check for the schema for the queries. So if you observe here, all fruits we previously used to read all the data from the server, right? Same resolver can be used for filtering also because all these input properties are non-nullable. Sorry, nullable. Okay, if a type prefixed with exclamation, then that is non-nullable. If it is not prefixed, all those are nullable. That's why we have able to read all the data without passing any filter in our read operation. Okay, same way now what I can do, I can use the filter, one of the input parameter filter I can use, because inside of filter we have lot of options like we can filter by array of IDs, filter by individual ID, filter by name, filter by quantity, filter by price. I simply use filter by ID. Okay, so for that all fruits, okay, open braces, I want to use filter, and what is its type? Fruits, right? But we have to create the variable name here. So what I will name? Fruit filter. Any name you can give. Okay, and to this fruit filter we have to define the actual GraphQL type, that is fruit filter. Here we have, right, this fruit filter type we have to define. So copy this, open braces here. Okay, variable and fruit filter. Okay, this is the type, nothing but our GraphQL exact type. Okay, and in the response, I want ID, name, quantity, and price. Okay, now we have to pass the data to this variable, right? Go to query window variable and open object and fruit filter. Okay, inside of this fruit filter variable, we have to use ID. Okay, so ID equal to any value, ID record ID value. Okay, so like this we have to prepare the filter query and we have to use it in our application. Copy this query command and go to our fruit query ts. Okay, export const fruits by ID. Okay, GQL and copy it inside of it. Okay, now go to our edit component.ts. Let's create a method like get by ID. Okay, and this method will have input parameter our ID, private Apollo. Okay, now we can use this dot Apollo dot. So watch query and we know how to define the type. The type is nothing but, so where is our query? This one. Resolver method will be comes as a type. We know that, right? So edit component, define the data type, and it will be single fruit. I am going to get, right, but it always returns array of data, but we will get only one record. So that's why we have to use the array. Okay, and define our query, that is fruits by ID. Okay, and it contains variables, right? So that variable is contains this, right, variable name. It contains internally this, so define it as well. Okay, and inside of it, it contains ID, right? Since I am inputting ID, same name, right? So I can directly give like this instead of specifying a key value, but directly you can give the key and value are same names. Okay, so here I am passing my ID to item to edit to this variable. Okay, dot value changes dot subscribe. Okay, and data. Okay, now what I can do, I can populate the response to the form data, right? So where fruit by ID and data dot all fruits of 0, first index, first item I want. Okay, then this dot fruit form equal to fruit ID, fruit by ID dot ID, name, fruit by ID name, quantity, price. Okay, so that's it. Our get by ID query. What we are doing, we are just uh, invoking the GraphQL endpoint to read item by ID. Okay, but we need to get this ID from our route, right? For that, we have to inject one more service like private route, activated route. Okay. So inside of the ng on it, what I can do means this dot route dot params map dot subscribe. Okay. And params and where id equal to number params dot get, and here we have to specify the our URL template dynamic text. So go to fruit routing module. So this is the dynamic replaceable field, right? So copy the ID and go to edit component and paste it. Okay, then simply call our this dot get by ID so that form gets populated. Let's test it whether it is coming or not. Okay, to test it we should have a edit button, right? So go to home component.ts HTML. Okay, here add one more th like actions and a new td and an anchor tag edit. Okay, and I will show like a button and router link, dynamic router link, right? ID value should be dynamic. So what I will do, first parameter will be the first part of the param edit and second will be our ID. So item dot ID. Okay, that's going to create the dynamic route, edit route. Okay, now go to our website. Okay, here is our edit button. Let's try to edit it. Open network calls. Okay, and click on edit button. Okay, and check the network call. You can see the network call for our query command filter by ID, and and we get the response, single response in the array. Okay, and our form is get populated. Now we have to work on the logic for updating the record. Okay, at both the server and local in-memory cache rate, because Apollo GraphQL uses local in-memory cache rate. Both we have to update it carefully. So inside of, so for update we have to create one more mutation command, right? So go to schema and go to mutations. So here is the resolver method for updating the single record, right? So here let's create the mutation. So mutation. So name of the resolver update fruit, and it contains values like ID, and let me create a variable name like ID name quantity. Okay, next last value price. Okay, so for these things I have to define the GraphQL type. So $id. So what is your ID? Like capital ID, which is a JSON GraphQL ID and which is non-nullable. ID is mandatory for update. Okay, next name. So name is string. So capital S string. You can check here. Okay, next quantity. So quantity variable int. Next price int. Okay, in the response it is returning entire fruit data, so I can expect name, quantity and price. Okay, this is how we have to prepare the query for mutation command. And here we know we have to create variables like ID, name, quantity. Okay, first let me copy this mutation. Okay, and go to my fruit mutation file. Okay, here export constant update fruit. Okay, encapsulate with GQL. Okay, so now go to our edit module, sorry, edit component, update method. Okay, now what I can do, I simply uses the create method in add components and I will modify it. Okay, to save some time. This entire method I am going to copy it in edit. Okay, I copied. So here the thing is we should call mutation method, that is fine. But here our response is not create fruit. Our response variable will be the update fruit. Okay, so as I did here. Okay, and change here also update fruit. Update fruit logic will be changed there. Okay, and here it is not mutation type is not create fruit. It will be a update fruit. Okay, and here variable ID also required. Okay, for create ID is not required, but here ID required, fruit form dot ID. Okay, so variables also completed. So we know that update is for updating the in-memory cache. Okay, so here lot of logic we will reuse. So here we are going to use same read query only, and this query also same for fetching all data from the in-memory cache. Okay, now what we will do, now new data equal to, first let's remove the existing data from the uh, records. Okay, for that what I can do, new data dot filter dot id not equal to data dot update dot id. Okay, so I'm just removing the old code for that id. Again, I'm pushing it on the top, updated record data. Okay, and finally saving into the store. And we have to navigate back to our home component. So inject the router service. Okay, private router. Think we are done. Okay, now let's test it. Okay, let's go back and let's try to update quantity and price. Okay, quantity will be 7 and price will be some 650 bucks. Now let's try to update. So open network calls to see the update call. Click on update. See, data is immediately updated. It is now loading from the store. Okay, and here you can see the update call with our update fruit data. This is payload, sorry, payload is this one, mutation. We are passing all our variable data. Okay, and if you refresh also, same updated data coming. That means our data is successfully updated at GraphQL also. Okay, next we are going to do delete operation. I hope this video delivered some useful information to you all. If you like my video, please do support me by subscribing to my channel. Soon we are going to meet with new videos. Until then, signing off.